Okay, so our second talk tonight, Todd Fabacher is the lead programmer and co-founder of Digital Pomegranate, one of the premier Flutter development agencies with offices in New York, Hong Kong, and Armenia. Todd has a track record of incorporating user and business requirements into cost-effective apps, simply done right. Todd has extensive international experience creating dynamic and effective global teams. Let's hear it for Todd Fabacher.
So when I originally, can you hear me in the back? Yeah, I'm in New York. I'm in New York, so I took a little. I just want to make sure. So basically, when I wanted to come up with a talk, and Martin and I had changed my subject a few times because I was going to do a couple of technical things, but basically, a lot of people have been coming up to me and said, how can I make a living with Flutter? And it was a big question for a lot of people. How do I make a living? So I said, all right, that's what I'm going to do. So one night I was sort of binge watching Star Trek on Netflix, and it was like the Ferengi, what do they call it, the Rules of Acquisition. I'm like, well, that's it, right? Oh, it's really funny. How do you acquire and how do you be a successful Flutter developer? So it's an interesting question. So what I did was, I Googled the rules, the Ferengi, and there's a bunch of rules actually. So I decided to pull out those rules and apply them. Now, real quick, we looked at Flutter. At one time we were looking at, we had used a different system. We always tried to be cross-platform. Then we looked at one of the JavaScript formats. We looked at React Native, we didn't like it. We looked at, what was the other JavaScript one? What's that? NativeScript. So, yeah, we looked at NativeScript. We didn't like the Ionic. We didn't like. So we looked at NativeScript. Anyway, they were all like nothing was working, and I was like, wow, we're really stuck. And then we found Flutter. But most of our clients, they were like, especially when it was in beta, they were like, we're not interested. All right. So everything I'm talking to you today, we basically switched to Flutter January 15th. So today is June 8th. So everything you're about to see started January 15th. Some started a little bit before because they wouldn't let us do it in Flutter, but now we've converted those to Flutter since then. Okay, so the number one advice, the number one rule is free advice is seldom cheap. So it's not cheap, but sometimes it really is. One of those things was starting, which was Flutter 1.0, which was what, in October? December. That's right, it was December. And so the advice was, if you're going to do it in Flutter. And the real thing was that was what was coming from Google. And I was even hearing that a little bit previous to that. A lot of people are now saying, well, I'm using this language, I'm using that language. If you look at the last Google development conference, it had 1 or 2 sessions on Java, or 1 or 2 sessions on the other ones. Everything was in Flutter. So they're not going to come out and tell you, if I were you, I would just use Flutter. But guess what? If you really listen to them, what are they telling you? If I were you, I would use Flutter. For a whole myriad of other reasons, including the change in operating system. So that's the first thing. Take the best advice is the free advice, so use it. The second is, one of the ones that I Googled, never confuse wisdom with luck. So it was a really interesting quote because is it the luck or is it the wisdom? One of the first ways that I'm going to give you advice on how to get yourself out there is to get yourself out there. So over summer last year, Forbes asked me to start writing. So I wrote an article on Forbes, why should you start looking at Flutter, Google's Flutter and Fusion, right? Now, 30,000 people read that. So the first way, like you said, how do I blog? How do I get their ways out there? How do I become a Flutter developer? Well, guess what? Like he said, the first thing they're going to do, whether it's even a job, or especially even more prevalent if you want to look for to get to the contract work, they're going to Google you. They will Google you. They will Google you. They want code samples. They want to find out if you're the real thing. Because remember, I've been doing this for 30 years. The one thing in their mind is every time someone's going to give you a project, I guarantee you they've been burned a dozen times. I've probably been burned 2 dozen times. So the first thing they have learned is always think that this project's going to fit. So when they're sitting there talking to you, they're basically in their mind is, it's not really how do I find the best developer, it's what is the best risk management. That's what they're really thinking in their mind. So when you're looking at it, they're Googling you, they're going to find something. And then it all happens. So from that article, we got contacted by a company called Flora. So Flora, they want to revolutionize the way you make tea. Okay? So it was really particular. They wanted to do Bluetooth. They basically were like, we're going to be the tea for Nespresso. Nespresso is a multi-billion-dollar business, but they needed an app. More importantly, they needed Bluetooth. We needed a package for Bluetooth, so we helped. Actually, we worked on it. We found one. We found lots of bugs in it. We helped update it, and then that's exactly what we're talking about: creating the community. We were able to use an existing system. We did it, and I think they're coming out in the 1st of July. So it's an entire app that you can walk up, just as you would assume. You can control it remotely from Wi-Fi. Actually, just like Alexa, you can walk up, you set the Wi-Fi through the app. So actually with Flutter, we ended up having to really do a lot. Like we had to connect, pull all of the network information down, and then send it through Bluetooth to the device, my Wi-Fi password, all that sort of stuff. We managed the whole thing, and everything was done in Flutter. That was our first real app that we did. So that led to the next rule, rule number 3. Good customers are rare as gold, so treasure them. Okay? So the reason we say that is, and it seems kind of common sense, but there was a guy, his name is Jiro. Now, here's the key thing, is I also research my customers. I want to find out, because a couple things. First thing I want to find out are the people, because they'll give you a project and then, they just become a vacuum and they will just suck your life, right? So you want to go ahead and be careful of who they are. So I Googled these guys. Next thing I know, they were writing articles on how to use Flutter to in the kernel of Linux, with an unusual operating system to emulate. They couldn't use the word Fuchsia, but basically the entire credit card system, the OS and everything was basically Fuchsia. And it was running Fuchsia native in the kernel for their credit card terminal in Brazil. I was like, wow. So I was like, now, here's the most important thing. Where did I find the guys? Upwork. And normally, I don't really do with Upwork, but here was the problem. I couldn't find any work in New York, right? That's Martin. How are you gonna, you wanna have hold up a sign in the middle on Broadway and say, I'm a Flutter developer? A lot of people keep walking past you, man. They don't know what is going on. So what do? You gotta go find the work. Well, I started looking on Upwork, and it was really unusual, and I'm like, these guys are power users. They had an app that they wanted to essentially do their onboard for their credit card system. Really simple. They have a little rule in Brazil where you have to take their registration card. It's onboarding. It's nothing. They just wanted to test us. One of the ways they test us was saying, we're a long-term customer. And that's where the rule comes in. The sense of like, I want to partner with a really good long-term customer, right? And they're like, but I only got $600 for this start project. You take it or not take it? Is he jibber-jabbing you? But I Googled them and I found it's a startup in the largest bank in Brazil. So I figure, let it go. I'm going to lose money on the gig, let it go. Sure enough, first of all, they're very happy with the app. I got my $600 and I lost about $500 out of the deal, right? But it's okay. The next thing is they really, really liked it. So the government of Brazil came to them and said, we want to put the terminal here and we want to revolutionize tax payment. We want to put these terminals all around Brazil in all these shopping malls. Remember, this is now February. So we did the onboarding app in 12 days. So we did the whole thing in 12 days. 2 days later, they basically, the first week of, maybe it might have been the last week of January, first week of February, they're like, look, these guys have been kind of bugging us. We never told us we can't do it, but we really liked how you guys worked. So we want you to do this. And this is huge, because they've already ordered the terminals. We had no idea what we were going to do. It's a large system. They're going to like those things in McDonald's. Now, how am I going to do this in Flutter? Remember, this thing just had come out. Maps weren't even working. I had another project where maps were like a disaster. And I'm like, wow, what do? Well, we made it work. We really made it. We came in here, we did great UI. Actually, if you look on the package, we did our own keyboard because they couldn't have, this is actually an emulated Android device. So they couldn't have the thing come up or down or whatever. So we did, this is our English travel, it's also in Portuguese clearly. So we did, because none of our developers do Portuguese, so we had to do English to test it. So they did it, we did our own keyboard. So actually you can find a keyboard Flutter package from Digital Pomegranate. And it just goes in and does it. And that's it. And they simply do the payment, they swipe the card. But here's the cool thing. Imagine in New York, you could go to a shopping mall, right? And part of it is to take a picture of they have a barcode, take a picture of your driver's license, pay your tax, and they send you a new driver's license. You don't even have to go to the DMV. And we did it all in Flutter, okay? Now, this is the really thing about really great customers. One of the guys who paid this, right, called the company up and said, who did this app? I did everything, because here was the deal. You couldn't have more than 5. Part of it is also UI design. You couldn't do more than 5 clicks. We had to do the whole thing in less than 5 clicks. Arbitrary number, but that was the rule. So we had to figure it out, blah, blah, blah. Okay, the guy loved it. He loved it. He was like, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. I have a huge problem. I have to manage like 1 million to 2 million people, right? And I need a terminal like this, and I need an app like this. Now, what does he do? Carnival. Who knew, right? It's how do you manage millions of people, the largest public event in the world? Not only just do you manage the people, how do you manage where they go, what they buy? I mean, the costumes are insane. Well, guess what? They're going to be ordering all of that in a Flutter app. Now, here's the funniest thing of the whole thing. Last year, the theme was Armenia for Rio. Don't ask me why, but Carnival was Armenia, one of the themes in the thing. We have an office, our main office is in Armenia. So this guy, the guy who had a Carnival, knew more about Armenian history than the people in Armenia, because he was like, oh, I've been researching Armenia for 2 years. And it was great, and he loved it. We all have conversations, and blah, 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 blah. And so they were now developing the app where everyone would be able to go on, you pick your theme. They have what they call schools, is essentially the word. And Rio is, I'm from New Orleans originally, so in New Orleans, every parade, every crew, we call them, has their own parade, but it's different in Rio. Their Carnival. They have one parade in each team, or school, I should say. They're all in a sort of like woven together, and that's how they get judged. So each comes along, whoever's got the best float, whoever's got the best costume, the best dancers, wears the least amount of clothes, whatever it may be, and then they get to vote. So that's how their competition goes. So we're going to be doing the app where they order everything. It's a barcode system. We're talking to them now they even want to say, like, they'll be able to manage where you go. They'll tell you with the maps where it is to set up, because it seems to be a real nightmare. Okay, next one. Hope doesn't keep the lights on. So a lot of these guys that you're looking at, and they've got their own startups. Like I said, I've been doing this for 30 years. And I'm here, first thing to tell you, if you're going to do a dev shop and you're a single app, that's really nice. You got to have the funding, and you got to have the market for it. If you're a developer, okay, not if you're outsourcing, but if you're a developer, one of the key things you want to do is get some talent in-house and do contract work. Do you want to do it? Because the fundamental thing is you need to keep some type of revenue. And also, you need to be able to do that outsourcing work because it helps you. If you're a dev shop and you do contract work, especially if you're picky, you pick the businesses that you're working on. And you let someone else pay for it. I'll give you an example in a little bit, but if you have an idea of creating an app, why not just go get a project that's very similar and let them pay you to develop, then you turn around and do your own, as long as it doesn't compete. So again, my big thing for me was Upwork, because my ego's the size of the moon, right? So why would I go to little Upwork? I've done huge apps in my life, this and that. Man, I'm telling you what, I was so surprised. A couple deals I really, really wanted to do, especially when we first started. Like there was one guy who wanted to take a picture of kids that were jaundice, and we wanted to be able to do the camera, and he would then feed it to the doctors and would do like an AI thing, tell people what was it. And I really wanted to do that out, but we couldn't control the camera the way he wanted. I've learned now in Flutter how to do it, but when we first started, I couldn't do it. So I've lost some really. Where are you going to get a project like that? Okay, really, really hard. So he was willing to do it in Flutter, but we couldn't make it work. So he went native. But anyway. So here's the big thing. Just since we started in January 15th, basically somewhere around February we got our first deal. So from February to today, just in Upwork, we've made $38,490. And that's how much we've made. That doesn't include how many projects we have. I mean, plus we've made a lot more on other works also. So we've made that money in 4 months. The other thing is we make sure that people are treated well. One of the reasons now that I've got a portfolio, we've got all these projects, and I think I'm up to, I don't know, maybe 15, 20. Some of them are really small, but I've got a 5.0 rating. Now, every day in my inbox, I want you to bid, I want you. I don't even have to go and search them anymore. Everyone's sending them to me. Oh, I want you to bid, I want you to bid, I want you to bid. Right? And if you read some of the reviews, love working with Todd. Todd team did a great job. Highly recommend. Great working. Awesome contractor. Makes a difference. Because some of the emails, and they read it, because some of the requests that I get, they're like, man, I read 8 of your, I don't even need to scroll down. Everyone said you're awesome. Do I need to even invite anyone else? And the other thing is, I started at $25, $30 an hour, and now I'm up to like $40, $50 an hour. And I'm going to go up even further. That's what you got to do, okay? Number 5, rule number 5. I know we're kind of short on time. Let me make sure I time myself. I don't have much time. But we were going to play a little game, but I'm not going to have time for that either. But rule number 5, if you believe it, they believe it. If you believe it, they believe it. I want you guys to think about that. Because I'm up here talking, right? Do you believe me? I could be BSing, right? Right? But if you believe it, they believe it. Now, one of the deals, we did this deal when Flutter was still in beta. So we got approached. Now, we had a contact here. We got approached by Sony. And they're like, well, we want to do an app, royalty music app. Okay? Now, you say to yourself, yeah, it can't be that difficult. It's a lot more complex than you think. The music royalty business is really complex. And they're like, we manage the royalty payments for 60% of the world music. Why should I trust you? They're looking at like big firms, right? Even though we had a contact, that only goes so far, right? Nobody's willing to put their job on the line, because if you screw up, in today's world, he could lose all of his business. And it was a real friend, and he's like, you guys, he's like, how do I know? So eventually we had a conversation with his boss, the CIO of Sony Music. And I'm like, look, man, here's the gig. You don't like it? Don't pay me. And he goes, I believe you. That's it. You got to take the risk, man. And it's a big risk, because we would have failed. We put a lot of time in there. But, needless to say, great. So now, we do the royalty payments, pay out Lady Gaga, Taylor Swift. If not them, it's their peeps, and they all use. And at first, we did another language because they weren't willing to take the risk, but now we converted that to Flutter. That has led to, there's another music company called Fan Power Music, which is the indie industry, right? So they contacted us. Then, last week, I got a call, got a message, right? From some guy whose English was really, said, can we Skype? I said, sure. He's like, I can't let you know who I am. I'm like, yeah, okay. And he's talking to me in German, He goes, and you can't let anyone know who I am. I'm like, okay. So there's another company that's just as big as Sony, which would basically control, between these two companies, 90-something% of the world commercial music. And he goes, I tell you, if I like it, blah, blah, blah. So he goes, we have one called iGroove, and what we'll do is, just in this market, and if we like you, this pays the royalty payments for us in these markets. And if we like it, we'll go national. That's the deal. So, and if we do with this, which so far we're doing it pretty easily, That would literally mean that we would write the apps to control 90% of the payments in terms of the reporting of it, of every musician in the world, all in Flutter. Okay, now, rule number 6, opportunity plus instinct equals profit. Which, if you ever watch Star Trek, it's kind of funny, kind of that idea, right? So, I did an app and a desktop called Espresso Books. So it's for accountants to sell to small businesses. Now, clearly it's a desktop. It wasn't done in Flutter. It was basically like a cloud server, but it needed to be a desktop. And we started this, way back, like last summer. So we did use a different system for that. Now, 2 months ago? So 2 months ago, I was in the UK. We were starting to do the beta test rollout for this. One of the things they do is what's called MTD, which is Make Tax Digital. So in the UK, they've mandated this thing April 1st of 2019 that everyone had to pay their taxes digital. So we did this, but it's a massive system. It's like QuickBooks Square. It's complex with accountants and all that other stuff. So I saw this thing, and I'm looking at it, I'm there, and it's like, say, MTD coming April 2019, I'm the week beforehand. Now, here's the problem. Every one of these magazines who's running an article is, this is a disaster. This is a total disaster. Nobody's on. And it's funny, because I was in London at a talk about a year and a half ago, and the lady who was in charge of it was like, hey, we're going to get everybody on. And I'm like, here's my card, right? This was September of last year. I'm in the beach in Spain coding this app because she contacted us and said, nobody can develop. QuickBooks failed security, all this sort of, on and on and on. Total disaster. Now, it's too complex for people to get on my app because you need to have an accountant, they need to get it set up, all this other stuff. All right, now, so what I did is, I don't know why, it just smacked me in the face. This is the instinct part, right? You gotta smell it, feel it. I mean, at the core, I'm a developer and I love it. I even started with assembly, but I'm a hustler, right? You gotta hustle, you gotta smell, you gotta feel the hustle. That's why I wanted to talk about the Ferengi, because if you're a regular developer that's looking for a job, you can sit back and they're gonna come to you, right? You're gonna get all those emails, well, come work, we need this developer, da-da. But if you want to own your own company, you gotta bring the hustle, and you gotta do the research. So it just hit me, sitting in there, eating my tea and crumpets. I'm like, wait a minute, this is too complex. I gotta do it more simple. And I researched it. 99% of all UK businesses are small. And I'm like, wow, yes, that's my market. Number 2, more than 95% of those small businesses are micro, 0 to 9. No wonder nobody signed up. It's too complex. Number 2, 0.1% of enterprises in the UK have more than 250 employees. So literally, now, here was the big thing. 5.7 million businesses. And less than 10% have signed up for MTD, even though it had been mandated April 1st. They gave them a little bit of grace period because here was the problem. They're like, you can't send me a check. And next thing you know, the UK government, just like Brexit, they're going crazy. Brexit, anyway, if you're there, you see all these crazy news going on. So not only were they screwing up this Brexit thing, nobody was sending them any money. So the government was now borrowing money from the IMF because no one was paying their taxes because they couldn't. So, opportunity, as whatever his name was saying. So, that's 5.1 million small businesses by April 1st, 2020. There's no more grace period. So I came up with the idea, take all this code, call it Express VAT. Pay your taxes in your pocket. Make tax digital, make tax easy. Pow! Then what do? It's simple. Super interface. One of the things is we have 4 UI designers on staff. So the developers are probably less than 50% of my staff. Project managers, graphic designers, those are almost, if not more important than the coders. Great UI. So Martin had mentioned Flare, right? One of the great things are, when we did a quick survey with the users, one of the things they said was, and ask. Someone's like, well, what should we do for the UI? I'm like, hey, Just take 100 people and ask them, what are you most afraid of? The response was, I'm afraid to be alone. I'm afraid to be by myself. I'm afraid I can't do it alone. So what did we say? We thought about hiring like this accountant, putting his, but that's not trustworthy. And I Googled it. People trust cartoons more than people. They will trust a cartoon. So what did I do? We came up with a cartoon, 2 cartoon characters. And we used Flare to automate them. A little bit of like chat stuff, and it talks them through it. Hey, did you do any EU? His name's Chester, right? Seriously, his name's Chester. I should have brought some animation out, I know that. But, so this is, and then we brought it down here, we bring it down. Chester, it's a step, you just hit next, boom, 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 boom. You can do your entire taxes in less than a minute now. Less than a minute. Now, here's the real quick one. Everyone else is 15 to $25, £25 a month. And if you're doing something, and by the way, this whole app took me 12 less, just the VAT Express. The other one's taken me quite a bit. It took me like 6 to 9 months. The more complex one, but it's very, very complex. It's got P&Ls, balance sheets, that's always a pain. This took me 11 weeks, maybe a little less. 10 weeks, whatever, because I'm doing a lot of other stuff. So, I know my cost. My cost is probably $10,000. Probably not even that much, okay? Everyone else is doing all this other stuff. I say to myself, I asked, what would be the best possible price for you? And I put these things. And we did a survey at 300. Ask. At $4.99, 100% of the 300 people I asked, they said, without question, I would buy this at $4.99. Well, guess what the core price is? Well, it's £4.99, which is about maybe $6, right? Now, what is my cost on this thing? 3 cents a month? 5 cents? It's like nothing. The other thing I did, data syncing. We decided, because it's very voluminous and they have to do it on a daily, so we looked at transactions for Firebase. We decided against Firebase because my costs would be really high. So actually we decided to use AWS. It gets kind of, I don't have time to get into it, but the whole thing about Makes Text Digital is you just scan, you do a picture for your receipts. You have to have all of your receipts and everything digitally. So it does the whole 9 yards. Okay, so real quick. Rule number 7, the velocity of wealth rate is divided by, times equal profit, whatever that means. So the key thing here is, if I do online contract work, I'm doing £50, £50. I can do pounds because that's what, and I average projects about 500 hours, and I make about $25,000. Okay, my app subscription at £5 times 5,000. Now, this is my worst case scenario is 5,000. I'm racking in, well, it should be pounds, but I'm racking in 25,000 pounds a month. Times 12, I'm doing 300K pounds, which is about $400,000 for 11 weeks worth of work. Why? Because it's innovative, and I don't know why the Team Crumpet, it just smacked me in the face. And I'm like, we're missing it here. The reason is because it's too damn complex. All right, now, here's the other thing. First year, by the way, it's a subscription. We also decided we could do it on the website with credit cards, like Stripe or something. They take 3.5. By the way, just FYI, Apple takes 30%, as you know. And if you do a subscription, they take 15% after the first year. Okay, quick, well, I'll start rolling. I know it's getting late. So rule number 8, it ain't over till it's over. So, real quick, only 30% I was at a Salesforce conference. 30% of Salesforce people from their tracking call more than 3 times on a sales gig. But only 10% of the sales are basically done on that. Only 10% call more than 7 times, but 50% of all sales happen after 7 contacts. Now, the reason I did that, I wrote that down and I never forgot it. You have to stay at it. You have to stay at it. Now, a good example of that was Tesla. So they have a startup division, incubator. So I'm pitching, I want to do Tesla, man. I want it. I'm calling the guy. The guy's calling me back because the off hours. I think he waited till 5 o'clock California time to call me back every day. which meant like 8, 9 o'clock, I'm taking his calls, I'm going at it, I don't know, stay at it, stay at it, stay at it, stay at it. This is the Flutter app. Last week, we, in New York, were on the phone with San Francisco, pressed the button, and we were opening the doors in Tokyo. All from a Flutter app. Okay? And it does all kinds of things the regular Tesla app doesn't do. It does gas, you can put it pulls the price of electricity. So it knows, like when you put in your kilowatts, how much you get, and it actually will tell you what is the price difference between your battery and what if you would have used gas. And mostly it's better, but whatever. Okay, number 2. Always ask what's in it for me. So that was one of the things I thought was kind of fun. Just to give you a quick story, I'm in Marrakesh, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, maybe about a month and a half ago, we were there, whatever reason, and I see a guy on the Flutter board who's asking these questions about a calendar. And I'm texting him and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh, sorry, I gotta go. I'm going to the Atlas Mountains, which is this little mountain range outside of Marrakesh. He's like, you going where? I said, I'm going to Atlas Mountains. It's in Morocco. He goes, I'm in Marrakesh. I'm like right here. I'm like, dude, we were right there, right, literally down the street from where our little hotel was. And then we're going, I was helping him out. He needed a material design for a full calendar system. He couldn't get it. Poor guy, really nice guy, Hamid is his name. And he couldn't figure out how to get 3 appointments on one column. Now, I had written many years ago Salon Biz. So Salon Biz was the largest hair salon and spa software in the world. So it's a $16 million business. Estee Lauder bought it out. So I had a lot of experience. So I was helping Hamid. And Hamid just wasn't getting it. He's like, look, I can't do it. And I'm like, look, I can't do it for you. And he's like, oh, can I pay you? And I'm like, you can't afford it. So I'm like, all right, look, here's the deal. Just pay me. I said, you know what? I got to get back to the community. Pay me whatever you can, and I'll do it. So I said, on one condition. If I'm going to do it and put in time, you're going to pay for it, and you got to be willing to allow me to put it in open source. So as it turns out, he looked at it. He's doing some big thing for the Moroccan government and the French government, and he had a budget of around $1,500. So here's the thing. There is all the Flutter calendar widgets and packages are, right, they're all garbage. So how can you get something like Google's, the Android one on Android? So good news is as soon as we test it, we're going to release it. We did the week view, the month view, the year view, everything just like you would get with iOS calendar or Google Calendar. And we're going to make it all public. So that's going to come out. So you got to give back, right? So what's in it for you? Like you said, what everyone says, like Martin says, you got to give back. People will do it. The other thing is we will turn that into our own app. Now, we're going to do it, but here's the deal. Someone else paid for it. So now I got a great calendar widget. And now, next year, you're going to see all kinds of fantastic scheduling apps in Flutter. Why? Because there's a calendar widget for it. That, if you don't really know what you were doing, is quite difficult. So now, it's out there. Okay, when what's good for business, tell the truth. So here's a good example. There is I can't say the name, I found out after looking at our contract. There is a exercise clothing company for Canada that I can't say the name. So they had a real problem. Someone promised them something, an app called Mover, that they wanted to use a test, right? So they used Ionic and they said, well, here's the deal. I need to play the music in the background, right? So this company lied to them and said, yeah. So they said, look, let's do it in Ionic, and then if we have to, we'll move it into native. So they hooked them with the cheap Ionic app, couldn't play in the background because it's basically, and as you guys know, it doesn't have the memory, it's just not the same memory space. They couldn't figure it out. The bottom line was they couldn't play Spotify because they wanted to exercise with Spotify and then do multi-channel. Well, we figured out how to do that. We had to do 2 native calls, which wasn't too difficult, but we did it in Flutter. So actually you could be playing Spotify and you can hook it into multi-channel and it basically plays exercise 1, 2, 1, 2 while you're listening to your music, and then we dim it without killing the other music. So just goes to show you the real power of Flutter. Okay, I know we're running late. So the last thing is the golden rule. There's no substitute for success. So the reason I say this is, my grandfather always taught me a really simple, funny thing. If you don't make money when you sleep, you will be 6 months away from poverty. If you're only doing consulting work, even if you're an attorney, money's like beer. The more you drink, the more you go to the bathroom. And your monthly expenses start to go up also as you make more money. And the bottom line is you cut that off, usually your expenses don't stop. 6 months, you're done. So you have to, as an organization, try to figure out, if you're going to survive in this business, how can you make perpetual income? So our first foray into this was we tried this in another language when was that? When did we go to Queens? We wanted to do that. Was that October? It was October, wasn't it? Yeah, it was October. So we had actually met on a Flutter Meetup, right? We had met, and then we were going to launch this app. We had all kinds of problems. We were trying to use UDP, and it wasn't working. And actually, we solved the problem. We couldn't get the server to work in Flutter, communicate. And someone at a meetup down in your old place, downtown, was like, you got to use, active server events. It's an HTML5 format. It's the greatest thing. Pow! Finally, we were able to switch to Flutter. So we switched to Flutter in January. And it was the best thing because we could never get it to work. So, let that work. Now, what it is it's bar trivia. It's a pub trivia. So you can go, people go, this is a way for me, this is our first app that we're going to start doing. Now we're doing a lot of other stuff. We've also, the other thing is, a lot of the new deals we do through partnerships. Like we're partnering with Alibaba. And there's so many other apps. Since January, we have done 16 apps in Flutter. That's how many apps we've done, 16, right? So one of those apps we're also working on right now is a joint venture with Alibaba for them. But this was our first one we did. Now, here's the great thing is we did Star Wars, Game of Thrones. We had worked with them. So we do the sports. So this is our own foray. But my response to you is you need to be careful, okay? Because, as these guys will tell you, you're not in the app business anymore. You're in the marketing business. You're in the content business. The app is the easy part. Be careful what you get into. Now, we have enough revenue to pay for this, but if I were just in this trivia business, I'd be out of business by now. I'd be going to friends and family to pay my bills. So be careful. We're going to work this out because we're moving. Now, what are the big lessons that I've learned in this one real quick? Email marketing. How do you get things out? Whether it's for your own business or something else. Email marketing is the top of the line. Get their emails. Everything else is borscht. I'm telling you, the key thing. Number 2, especially if you're doing B2B, trade shows. Go to trade shows. Because if they're going to the trade shows, that means they're spending a couple $1,000s, they really want something, right? It's not just like getting an online contact or something, or just someone just genuinely thinking, If they're literally going to Vegas for something, that means they're serious. It's like SEO, which is really nice, and the trivia. This was our booth, by the way, in Vegas. In the trivia app originally, and by the way, this is what we're doing with the Express VAT. We're really doing keywords there big time because I learned my lesson in trivia. So the average trivia click is about $3.20 from Google. So we were getting, the first 2 months, we got a total of about 250 organic clicks. I'm like, this is not it. I went to Fiverr, I did my keyword research, it only cost me $20. They gave me everything, I did everything. I found a couple of SEO tools, I ranked it, and I hit it, and I hit it, and I hit it. We get 2,200 hits a week now. All organic. If you think about that, and the other thing also I learned about social media, and I pushed this down to number 4, you pay just to get them to like you. Well, guess what? If you start posting, they don't see it. Why? Because you got to pay again. I'm like, blow this, man. Like, the ROI is no good. That's why I was reading, because I Googled, social media sucks. Advertising sucks. And sure enough, Ford has dropped 100% of it. Their ROI was half of what they found billboards were. Half. So maybe some are really, really successful, but you got to think about it, because our ROI on it was bonkers, considering we spent SEO and we're getting real traction out of that. So that's it. I know we were going to play a game, whatever, but it's getting close to 9 o'clock, so we don't have time. So, all right. Any other questions? Anything? That's it.
What do you use to do your polling?
We do social media. We go on Facebook, and then we used is it Poll Daddy or something like that. So yeah, so we send it to people. We try to, you know, if I have a particular group, I do it by email. So it's simple. I try to keep it simple.
It sounded more like you're doing a lot of contract work as well, aside from the Trivia-matic one. But if you have a new idea for an app that you want to develop, how do you go about, executing like market validation and whatnot, and then also kind of like protecting your idea?
Protecting your idea, you forget it. It's not going to happen. And this like concept of a software patent is like, forget it. It ain't going to happen. You don't even have the attorney fees to deal with that, even for the application. So patents, for protection, you can't help it. So that's a really, really good question, by the way. The way I have usually done, like with this trivia thing, we took a small portion of the functionality, right? Same thing with the Express VAT. Now, the big app is in beta test, but it's still not even finished. Whack it down, takes a crucial function that you're really looking to do. Just do that and get it out. And that's how you do your market validation. And it's a good way. And then if that 25% function takes you more than 12 weeks to code, then you've got the wrong one, or it's too complex. Yes?
How big is the team?
So the Flutter team right now, we started with 2. So, but to be honest with you, we've had to rump up a lot. So including support and everything, 27, almost 30. And the other thing is, so I wasn't in the city last weekend, so the Armenian team for the global. So we came up with a really great idea. This is the idea of being innovative. When we first sat down and talked, they're like, oh, let's do a job finder. I'm like, man, who wants to do a job finder? Everybody's doing job finder. So we really sat down and whacked together a really good idea. We got off the idea of Stephen Hawking, who basically found out, and because they're like, oh, let's do something with voice, like Alexa. And we took it over, and we started going. I'm like, computer voice. Stephen Hawking came up. He had written 18 best-selling novels, all with the little thing he did, and it was so amazing. So we called it, instead of coding, hawking. And we wrote a Flutter code that's going to allow people to hawk and do hawking by just using their voice. And we already got a call from some Dutch university. There are over 1 million people that are handicapped with their arms, and they would love, either through Flutter or something like that, be able to code with their voice. So that was what we did on the weekend. So far, globally, we're number 7 so far. So good luck.
Where do you find Flutter developers?
Start them from scratch. We get them from school. We get them like when they're 18 years old, 19 years old. And I mean, because not only is it teaching them coding, you got to teach rules. I mean, we are militant about comments, about what he had mentioned, like putting in the markup for documentation. I mean, one of my best coders refused. I mean, his variables were all F, H, blah, blah, blah. Everything was I, da, da, da. I'm like, look, man, you're on warning number 3. And the only reason you're getting 3 warning is because you're a great coder. Your stuff is really good. I cannot have this. 2 weeks later, he screwed up again. You know what I did?
Fired.
I fired him. He's like, the guy was dumbfounded. He was sitting in his seat. He wouldn't leave. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, fired. You're fired. Because I can't afford that. So not only do we teach them to code, we teach them how to manage, project management, everything.
So you start with what skills are you looking for when it comes to these?
Creative.
Creative, that's the only skill that you're looking for.
Yeah, creative and attention. Yeah, if they have those 2 skills, I could teach them how to code.
And you teach them how to do Flutter or Java. You're not really depending on the skills that they learned in school.
No, almost not. Almost not.
Depending on the fact that they were able to sit in school.
That's correct. If they can sit and learn. Yeah, and it's not cheap. And I could tell you, if you, especially like in Armenia, if you like put your ear to my door at 5:30 in the morning, you'll hear me. And it starts off with, what the are you doing? That's at 5:30, and I kind of calm down by like 9.
Sometimes you wonder if there's any juice in the brain,
Yeah, but that's the way it is. But you can't do it. I mean, and everything goes. And look, but let you know, we have a big shop in Armenia, and I could go on with the stories there. The best one is.
Do you use like developers, or are you managing
So I go there a bit often. But the other thing is, I hired to hire. So I hired like 3 people, and I really pushed them hard, and now they train. I do less and less, not as much as I used to. But one of my best guys, all of a sudden he disappeared. His name is Aaron. And I'm like, where's Aaron? Oh, his dad made him quit. I'm like, what? And this guy's great. And so I went to go to dad up in the mountains, whatever. There's like this poor house or whatever, and I'm like paying Aaron pretty good. I'm like, man, what's up? He goes, oh, my dad won't leave here. I'm like, what's, and I'm like, so I meet the dad, hello, what's happening? Oh, I hurt my back, he's a sheep herder. And I'm like, we're sad to see Aram go. I just kind of checked to see that the family's okay. He's like, yeah. But Aram's a terrible sheep herder. All he wants to do is computers, and then it hit me. And I'm like, yeah, he's terrible. He's lazy, yeah. And I'm like, isn't there someone that's better sheep herder? Yeah, a cousin down the street, whatever. I'm like, so I went down to the cousin down the street, and I'm paying him to watch the sheep so Aram can come to work. You gotta do what you gotta do. You gotta hustle it, man. And it's the same in like Bronx or whatever, I mean, the stories is different, whatever, but the stories are the same. How do you get pure talent? Start them when they're young and pay them. Remember, I just hired an intern. You got to be willing to pay. Like her father is a security guard at a court, and I was at the little tea shop there. I was just there last week actually, and so this intern makes 3 times, and her father's been a security guard for 20 years. She makes 3 times what he makes. I ran outside. Yeah. So I'll put it this way. So let's say, for example, interns. So if you just come to class, all you gotta do is show up. Like, I don't charge you. I give you $380 a month just to show up for me to teach you. I lose a lot of it, but it's worth it. So I pay you $380 just to come to my class. And it goes up from there. So it goes up fast.
And how long was your onboarding?
About 6 weeks.
And,
So we start them. The deal is you do projects. We teach them. You can't teach the code. It's like sculpting. Once you just chisel, boom, then here's your first, you got to chisel it. Or painting. The only way to do is to paint. And we just start them doing something. Even anything, if it's a small part of a project. Hey, make this sound play. Make you do this. That's the wonderful thing about Flutter. Everything's a widget. Everything's a widget. So all I got to do is tell you, get this widget to work. Get a widget to do something. The Flare thing is really nice. The first thing we really start is get them to work with the graphics department, get this Flare thing to work. They love it. It's really fun. They get it, they click the button, a little animation happens. That's what you do. You got to give them stuff, and they really love it. And then that, now, because I can see it. I see them online at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and they're updating. Why? Because it's not a job to them. You've created hope and a future, and it's exciting for them, and they really like it. So that's what I think. Yeah. That's it. Good. Okay. Sorry for so late.